So I had Colorado. They beat Arizona State University 27-24. So far, so good, right? I had Colorado minus 3.5. So final score 27-24. I lost. Those odds makers, they know a little something. Like that line was so perfectly drawn. But I took Philly minus 4 at LA, and they covered. So my weekend was a total wash in that regard, and I had fun. Parks Casino and Sportsbook. By the way, Pennsylvania's #1 casino experience in my native Bucks County, accessible from wherever you are in the northeastern United States. It's not just the gambling. How about the upcoming exciting entertainment? Michael Blaustein, the comedian, Howie Mandel, Air Supply, Aaron Lewis, Michael Carbonaro, Martina McBride. Parks Casino, the ultimate destination for all of your fun. Get in on the action and excitement. Know that they've got valet parking. They also have charging for electric vehicles like mine. For all things Parks Casino, visit parkscasino.com. Parks Casino and Sportsbook. This is how you win. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. TC, I'm particularly proud of today's newsletter. Thank you, Alice.
You should be.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Michael, for your content selection. Thank you, Alice, for bringing it all to fruition. 20 aggregated links every day. The first, I think, 9 of them all about the situation in Israel. The poll question today on the situation in Israel as well. But as I scroll through, and for the benefit of those who watch on YouTube, and we thank you. So the #1 story, let me just say a word about my selection, if I may, okay?
What's your process?
The #1 story today, in my view, was the confirmation by the Wall Street Journal that Iran helped Hamas plan the attack. And so that's my lead story. And then from the BBC, the massacre at Tribe of Nova Festival is the most devastating and brings it all home. Like, it's the equivalent of somebody telling you what went on in the Twin Towers on September 11, and I don't think I'm being overly dramatic in explaining that. Tom Friedman's opinion is always one that I want to know from the New York Times when it pertains to Israel. USA Today had a great feature, Understanding the Middle East Conflict in Maps. So it's not 3D-ish, I guess 2D-ish, but, I'm no expert in this. I'm trying to be knowledgeable and to speak with some level of information behind me. I found that helpful. You might as well. Israel orders complete Gaza siege. That was breaking as I was coming on air today. That's from the LBC, which is a British news source. From Al Jazeera. Yeah, I told you, I'm here to present balance. This is a straightforward news story about what exactly is Hamas, and the source is Al Jazeera. CNBC on the situation with Dow futures. This was before the market opened up, having dropped. Politico ties into the poll question of the day. How big is this going to get? NBC News with a report on how interim Speaker McHenry has very limited authority. Like, we're vulnerable because we don't have a House Speaker. And then I morph into the remaining political headlines of the day, beginning with a Washington Post piece about this being a time for GOP moderates to rise. So the newsletter looks great, and I'm proud of it, and I'm appreciative that so many of you are subscribers. If you're not, subscribe to it. It's free and it's worthy, and every day there is a different poll question. Today's poll question at Smerconish.com asks, will the Israel-Hamas conflict remain localized or become a broad regional war? There are other things going on in the world today. The 2024 presidential campaign really taking, well, let me say, as I said earlier, you so often hear me remind us all that nobody knows what's coming in the presidential race. And I always make the point that there are events that are going to unfold that we could never anticipate. And this weekend, and this is going to be with us for a long time, is a great example of what I'm talking about. The candidates are jockeying. RFK Jr., I hope to be able to watch this myself today. I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but RFK Jr. making an announcement in Philadelphia today, being framed as, announcing his independent or third-party run. I continue to want to see, is he going to try and take the green slot and get ballot access now that Cornel West is running independent? I don't understand why Cornel West would say, I'm not going to run as the Green Party candidate or compete for the Green Party nomination. I'm going to run as an independent because it's a gargantuan task to get on the ballots.
Right. Yeah.
So if the Green Party is
what
giving
is this
you,
going to sound like
you remember Jill Stein?
I do.
Okay, Jill Stein in 2016 was the Green Party candidate.
Right.
I can't tell you who the Green Party candidate was in 2020, but Jill Stein, made a credible run as a Green Party candidate. Gary Johnson and Bill Weld in 2016 as the Libertarian ticket. I could more easily see RFK Jr. today saying that he's running as a Green than running as a Libertarian.
Howie Hawkins.
Good trivia. Good trivia. Drink.
Oh,
drink.
I would not have known that. I would be drunk.
So you've got RFK Jr. out there making an announcement in Philadelphia today on a crisp fall day. He got good weather for an outdoor announcement. Cornel West saying he's running as an independent. Marianne Williamson, I'm not sure what to make of her in all of this, but I'll tell you who's taking it all quite seriously. You know what? Both of the so-called major candidates are taking it seriously. The New York Times over the weekend, Biden fighting third parties. The lead, powerful allies of President Biden are aggressively working to stop third-party and independent presidential candidates, fearing that an outside bid could cost Democrats an election that many believe will come down to just a couple of percentage points. So the coordinated efforts, like I discussed with Richard Gephardt, on the part of Democrats who see all of this as being a problem for Biden, because that Trump support is so hardcore. The mindset is quite simple that if anybody else is on that ballot, if they're going to pull from Joe Biden more than they're going to pull from Donald Trump. However, another story today from Semaphore, linked at Smerconish.com, about how the Trump people are readying and getting their sights set on RFK Jr. because they see him as threatening to them. And we've talked here before about how Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s numbers are much, much better among Republicans than they are among Democrats. Here's what this says. Members of Donald Trump's team are quietly preparing to go on offense against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as internal campaign polling suggests his expected third-party bid could draw more votes from Trump than President Joe Biden in a general election. Semaphore has not independently reviewed the polling. One person close to Trump's campaign said it showed that Kennedy took more votes from Trump than left-wing independent Cornel West drew from Biden when both were tested.
Wow.
So think about this. Could RFK Jr. go from like the guy that all the Democrats were livid with? Like, how could he do this? How could he run against Joe Biden? 5 or 6 of his relatives are serving. All of a sudden, like he could become the hero. Like, go Bobby. Go Bobby. Because they love you on Fox News.
Does it matter then so much what is said today? In other words, whatever he's got to be going green, right?
I don't know.
I mean, that was your revelation last week in the middle of the.
It got
you're like, wait a minute, environmental lawyer.
Nobody
all
cared.
All these things.
When a light bulb went off in my head.
I saw it in the middle of the show. We were live. God. It was not during a commercial break.
This is what he's doing.
It was live on air.
But there's so much going on. It's hard to compete.
I mean, come on. How this weekend? Nothing else is coming to the top, and as is evidenced in your newsletter. But this is going on,
no doubt,
and will keep going on. Yeah.
I liked something else that we had in the Sunday newsletter. It was from the New York Times. Trip Gabriel and Hillary Swift wrote it. I often talk here about self-sorting.
Yes. David
Wasserman was from the Cook Political Report, was a guest here last week, and we talked more about self-sorting. Okay. And I've said to you many, many times that there are roughly 3,000 counties in the United States. A blowout result by the standard I'm about to reference is where a county is won by 20 plus percentage points. If you go back to the 1980 election, there were less than 400. If you go to the 2020 election, there were 1,726, I think. Huge growth of blowout counties. What accounts for that? We don't redraw county boundary lines. Perhaps that people who can are moving for political purposes. And the New York Times story over the weekend was about the Nobles family who moved from Iowa to Minnesota and the Huckinses, who moved from Oregon to Missouri for political reasons. Listen to this. Mr. Huckins and his wife Ginger were leaving Portland, one of the most progressive cities in the United States. They said that Portland's tolerance of homeless encampments, along with the open use of hard drugs and rising crime, had filled them with despair, so they headed 2,000 miles east to deep red rural Missouri. One thing I do like about Missouri, there's lots of American flags, said Mr. Huckins as he steered around a traffic circle where the stars and stripes flapped crisply on a pole. In Portland, he said the American flag was offensive. And then you get the Nobleses. They were packing their possessions into a 26-foot-long U-Haul truck in suburban Iowa, headed for Minnesota. Their only child, Julian, came out as transgender at age 11. Now 16, Julian uses prescription testosterone after Iowa banned gender-affirming medical care for minors, criminalizing their son's treatments. The Nobles, lifelong Iowans, concluded they had to get out.
Wow. It's like the ultimate all politics are local. How is it impacting everyone underneath my roof? And what does that mean? And how do we live? And how do we interact with our neighbors? It's the ultimate.
Do you now want to know, okay, how are the schools? What are the taxes like? Am I going to see some appreciation if I buy in this zip code? And oh, by the way, what are the politics?
Isn't that something that you probably are not allowed to ask? I mean, you know this from your mother and wife being such star realtors.
Yeah, isn't
there a whole list of things you're not allowed to ask? And wouldn't that be one of them?
I can't ask, like, can I walk to worship? Is there a mother-in-law suite? You know, a whole laundry list.
You can't ask anything about the racial composition.
Oh, God, no.
No, but I'm saying, like, do politics fall into that category?
I need to get you a better answer.
I bet it does.
I need to get you a better answer.
I bet it does. And so you have to sort of suss it out for yourself if it matters to you.
Right. Well, to these folks, it matters. We've talked about it in the abstract. It was just kind of neat to see, like, here are stories of two families that have actually done this for opposite reasons. In any other week, do you know what I would be talking about, like, bigly on this program today? In any other week, if the situation in Israel had not taken place, I'd be talking about Hillary and deprogramming. That was going to be your thumbnail,
right? No, that was your thumbnail for this Saturday CNN show.
I hardly got into it,
as we discussed. Right.
Hillary Clinton likened devote. We're going to come back to this week. Okay. I promise you I want to come back to this week. I've got lots of thoughts. Likened devoted supporters of former President Trump to cult members and warned they may need a deprogramming. This was a CNN interview that aired on Thursday. Then it broke later on Friday after I was already off air. Common sense and sane Republicans are being intimidated by MAGA members of the caucuses, according to Clinton, who ran against Trump in the election. She noted that most Republicans joining with Democrats last week to keep the government open and avoid a shutdown as proof of common sense that faction still exists. But she said that there are a whole host of other folks who are out there taking their marching orders from Donald Trump. Are there some? I'm sure there are. But I don't paint with a broad brush and say, like, all of those MAGA people, you know, fit in that. Frankly, it was reminiscent of the basket of deplorable comment that she made. And it reminds me of Ben Bradley Jr. and the book The Forgotten. And he wrote that wonderful book, and he was a guest on this program. And maybe I'll have him back. It would just be nice to touch base with him and say, hey, you wrote this book. She's talking about the very people that you profiled, and what do you make of it? Rishi Sunak, speaking of gender and politics, the British Prime Minister, I thought it was really incredible what he said. Quote, it shouldn't be controversial for parents to know. Do you have that audio? Yeah, but listen to this and just tell me how this would play in the United States if a leading political figure were to say exactly this. You're going to tell me, well, some of them already do.
And it also shouldn't be controversial for parents to know what their children are being taught in school about relationships. Patients should know when hospitals are talking about men or women. And we shouldn't get bullied.
Can we stop right there for a sec? Let's just dissect quickly. It shouldn't be controversial for parents to know what their children are being taught in school about relationships. I agree with that. Parents ought to know.
Out of context, I agree with that too.
Patients should know when hospitals are talking about men or women.
I wasn't sure what that meant.
Neither am I. Okay. Here's the part you must pay attention to.
And we shouldn't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be. They can't. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's just common sense.
Okay. I'm going back to the Nobles, the Noble family, the family that had to leave Iowa. What are we saying to Julian, who came out as transgender at age 11, is now 16, uses prescription testosterone? Iowa banned gender-affirming medical care for minors, criminalizing that kind of treatment. Now, what would Rishi Sunak say to that teenager?
He would agree with Iowa.
Because my view is I want to do whatever it takes to help Julian.
Whatever it takes.
For the last 5 years, Julian has been living a life that is at odds with the body that Julian was born with. I hope I'm saying that in a way that you understand the compassion I feel for Julian.
Of course.
And I'm now gonna scold Julian?
No.
I'm gonna shake my finger at Julian and say what Sunak said. Don't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be. Julian got dealt a hand.
It is such an incredibly small percentage of human beings that I don't know if I'll ever understand how it has become such a flashpoint, but boy, it has been.
It sure has. A story for a different day, but I recommend it. Steve Lopez, haven't always been a fan, but from the LA Times, I linked to it today under the headline, Road Rage for Seniors Getting Tested. It's a tough issue, man. It's when folks get old and they're still driving. And in California, people are like this. I'm not going to do it justice, but some of the questions that are being asked of those who are over 70 and have to go renew their license, I couldn't pass when I was 16 and studying. And finally, can we just on a lighter note, because this made me feel good, The Hollywood Reporter has identified the best TV of the century so far, the 50 top shows. And the reason I'm so excited if and say, like, somebody recommends a TV show to you these days, and oftentimes you've never even heard of it. Right? In this case, the top 5, I watch them all. So they say the best TV show of the last 50 years, Mad Men.
Hey.
Sopranos.
Hey.
Succession.
We've talked about them all here.
30 Rock.
Come on.
By the way, how are you doing so far? Mad Men?
I mean, I haven't watched cover to cover, but yes, familiar. I know. You don't.
I'm not accepting
count.
that.
Okay,
Sopranos.
Fine. Yes. I watched all the Sopranos.
Look in your eyes. You did?
Yes.
Succession.
No.
30 Rock?
No.
Okay. The Wire?
Well, at least I know about
The
them.
Wire?
No.
Damn. I love this list. I love this list.
I'm so glad.
I love this list. Gang, go vote at Smerconish.com. Tell me whether this situation is going to remain localized or, unfortunately, is going to grow to a regional war. Okay? Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the daily newsletter. Also, final note, listen to my podcast on the poll question of the day. Yeah, it's an additional item that we just dropped today. See ya.